Alright guys, it's Spoot with Fort Misery Gaming, and we are going to be doing something a little different today. So with the help of YuppieG, our new assistant and strategian in our Sinoalice guild and Zen gang, we've put together a couple of different nightmare sort of rotation lists for Gran, Colo, and Colo. And he actually wrote up a little bit of a write-up for... that's a really dumb thing to say. He did a little bit of a write-up for why each nightmare can be useful and sort of where you should be using them depending. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. This isn't going to be a crazy long video, but I do want to give you guys the information you need. So at the top, this is our sort of our guild sheet. This is where we have the separated important ones. So you've got attack, P&M up, which is physical and magical, defense, P&M up, etc., etc. Attack, phys, Colo 8 hit, SP cost, resist, water skills, elemental skills, etc. And then we have 5, or is this 6? I think it's... Oh, shit, we've got way more than that. So we have a bunch of rotation strats. 50%, I would say like 50 to 70% of the time, and I would lean closer to 70. We stick to the first 4. We don't usually use any of the turtle strats, but they do exist. So you'll notice like the common theme here most of the time is you lead off with either Bad Rabbit or Library Wisp. Now this was made about a week ago. So Bad Rabbit has been replaced by Cecilia since we have a couple of guys who are max limit breaking her. The only difference is Bad Rabbit has a 200 SP cost, whereas Cecilia costs 0. So if you see the little Bad Rabbit, just imagine you're looking at this young woman here. Cecilia, the Crimson Banisher. Oh, she is! Oh, damn, she's 8k stats at max MLB. That's crazy. And basically, it's just, you're raising the attack of all of the Vanguard, Fizz, and Mag. So just wanted you guys to see exactly what that unit was, since we have sort of changed it since this list was last updated. Although it's been a day, so, you know. Most of the time, the first 4 are going to be Wisp, Rabbit, Plant, and Eris, just to prepare for the first demon. It's not always guaranteed. Like, you'll notice sometimes we put Eris either slightly above or further down. So it really depends on what is going on. We like to have a couple of options on the fly. Like I said, I'm not going to go crazy into detail on all of these, just kind of show you why we're doing them. We do have a Justice strat. I think every team should have a Justice strat at this point. So the timings that we try to hit are Eris for the first demon and either Oogaloo or Frost Golem for the second demon, depending on if we need to pump out DPS, which is why we go Frost Demon or Frost Golem, or if we need to buff, which is all of our minstrels, which means we would lean more towards Oogaloo, since most of us have red instruments, which is disappointing. Although I'm about half and half. I have mostly blue and red and some green now, that I've picked up the 2 extras. So these are just to sort of give you an idea of what we do and why we do it. And then I'll sort of go into the nightmare explanation because we do have a write-up. You will see demons down here. That is a different video, but I will be going over those. So, again, first up is Bad Rabbit. Replace that with Cecilia. It works out pretty much in every composition. The earlier you use it, the better. Mostly because the attack buffs that you get from it are permanent. They don't go away. Library Wisp is just the opposite of Cecilia and Bad Rabbit. It's a crazy amount of defense buffs, and it's permanent. So you want them as early as possible. Hateful Plant is an AoE debuff. It has very low activation time. So generally you want to pop it either right after a demon that you know you're going to win, or generally when you're going to try to shotgun focus some people. It's, like Yuppie says here, it's really good on a minstrel demon, because you can kind of nuke people down during it, and you can make everybody panic use all of their instruments. So, if you use it, like, just before, people have to buff. So they may not have enough SP, or they may not have enough instruments ready for the demon, and it gives you a slight advantage. This doesn't always work. There are some guilds that are just prepared. There's nothing you can do about that. Oh, did I hit back? Okay. You've got Bird. If they have a crap ton of DPS, like if you are being edged out on a lot of DPS vanguards, Bird's pretty good. It follows the same identity sort of as Plant, except for attack. So, like, it's generally you want to use it before a demon, especially if it's a demon or a minstrel demon, because it makes them kind of panic cast, and it may waste some of their saves. Emil Head is a very, very high cast time nightmare. Like, he takes forever to drop, but his physical DPS is through the roof. You've got Knowing, the Sandstorm. The only time you don't use her, really, is if you're going just balls to the wall on attack. It's more for an even fight or a sustain fight. So what she does, for those of you that don't know, is she lowers the accuracy rate or the activation rate of Coliseum aid skills. So essentially it turns off support buff, it turns off, or support boon, it turns off healing boon, it turns off dauntless courage. And if you have a bunch, or you have it doesn't turn them off, it has a chance to turn them off, is what I should say. And as you know, like, not getting hit with dauntless courage for your entire health pool almost is pretty sweet. So turning that chance of happening off is, it's pretty good. You've got Jormungandr, the first, this was the chapel event that a lot of people didn't get him because those were some hard levels when they came out. He's the opposite. So he turns the accuracy or activation rate of your support skills up. So, like, if you were trying to scramble a heal or scramble a bunch of buffs really, really quickly, he is very good. People tend to use him later in the game where debuffing and buffing and healing are kind of even up. You've got Eris, who is... I mean, Eris is just Eris. She almost halves the SP cost for, like, 2 minutes, which is pretty ridiculous. So, like, you always prep her for Demon 1, and if you have to, use her for Demon 2. But she's almost always used better early, just because you want your elemental boys in rotation. Digitalis is got a very odd activation, so you can only use her when you have half the life force of the enemy. So you can't use her when you're, like, in single digits. So, like, if you're just getting, like, 800k stomped, there's no reason. But if you're pretty close, it's decent. So, like, you can only... It's at 50% to 100% activation. So, like, if they have 100,000 and you have 50,000, you can activate it. But if you go below 50,000, you can't. So if you get the timing down, you turn her on against... As soon as the enemy freeze golem gets summoned, if he gets summoned, you summon her, because it turns down the effectiveness and the power of water abilities. So it's also an okay justice turn-off, but it doesn't work as much just because the DPS acceleration is kind of crazy. Lindworm... DPS is through the roof with him right now, since a lot of people are sitting on wind grids since nier replicant. So, man, this boy's good. He just turns wind weapons into one-shots most of the time if you can proc a DC2. Oogaloo, or as Yuppie likes to call him, the minstrel and sorcerer savior. This is because most of the most of the books and instruments that are out lean red. There is kind of a split now with the last two banners that there are a bunch of blues, but it depends on your pull rate. So most of the time, even in your S rank or SR max rank weapons or instruments and tomes, you tend to lean red. So just kind of keep that in mind. At least with Lindworm and Oogaloo, you get a little bit of a spread between Vanguard and Rearguard. Oogaloo is really good to proc after a Min Sork demon because you just start double-digiting your buffs. Like, you're going to hit all of them. Freeze Golem is the least useful one, although he is climbing in popularity for Rearguard because, like I said, the last two banners we've gotten some blue support items out of. 2 or 3, something like that. I'd have to look at them to make sure, but I don't have them on the screen just offhand. So, like, right now, I am 8 red, 6 blue, 3 green, and 2 of them are staves. So, it's pretty good. And here's a, Yuppie gave us a little bit of a disclaimer. He's like, these are subjective, but it also relies on common weapons. Everybody's guild is going to be slightly different. So if you guys want to use like the Discord Alice bot that lets you look at everybody's grids, you just post a picture and it gives you the run out for them. You can kind of gauge which one of the big boys is more important for your guild. And you definitely want to have that information because that sort of affects where you would summon them and why. We tend to save Oogaloo and Frost Golem for later in the fight, but it really depends on how the fight is going. So then you have, of note, Justice. She is, I don't even think arguably at this point, I think she is probably just one of the strongest nightmares in the game, because her effect is ridiculous. So she costs 200 SP. She has a prep time of 70 seconds. She lasts for almost 2 minutes. If you are losing, she greatly increases the effect of attack skills for all frontline allies when at disadvantage, which means you have less life force, and when comboing, which means your combo stats are slightly improved for these. This will probably get replaced by Barbarian when he comes out. So just sort of keep that in mind. I think the L Ogre is also pretty good. But we're going to see Barbarian probably within the next month. So just keep a lookout. Because him replacing Nightmare is pretty good. Especially because the stats on Nightmare are really, really bad. So here's the thing. If you are going to Justice, and it is a gamble, you want to make sure you can try to boat. The only way you can really get around getting Justice is if there is so big of a gap between your life force totals that you don't really think they have a way of... Even if they Justice, they can't come back. These are your 500, your 600k leads. These aren't your 100k to 200k leads. Justice can swing those very, very quickly. The other way that people counter her, which is actually pretty funny, is the old, you justiced earlier than we did, so we're going to justice instead. Which, if they have a slight advantage on you because of Justice, you will take back because of Justice. It's really stupid. She's very bizarre. So, just to give you an idea, we've only had to sort of shotgun call Justice like twice, and one time we lost really, really badly, not because of her, but because we were already losing, although we came back pretty significantly. And then the other time we used her was a straight blowout. Like, we procced her at about 5 minutes. They had already used their Justice at about 12 because they were trying to gain ground on us, and they did. So we procced Justice after the second demon, and we just steamrolled them. Like, we put up almost 200k above them, and then we boated them. which took out whatever the difference was at that point. We were both around 500k, so I wish I had the screen up. I don't. It's on my phone somewhere, but my phone's in the other room, so no worries about that. So these are our rough Nightmare Guild strats. This isn't a tier list. Don't treat it like a tier list, because everybody's guild, depending on how you play, is going to be slightly different. Now, there are going to be some staples, like if you have Library Wisp, you're going to cast Library Wisp. If you have Noan, you're going to cast Noan. If you have Eris, you're probably going to cast Eris. Same thing with the 3 big boys, the 3 elementals. Like, you're probably going to use them if you have them. The rest of these are sort of fill-ins for what can they do when you need them to do it. Like the AoE debuffers, very good. But you don't always want them in rotation. Like, for example, like we have a couple of them in rotation. Sometimes we use both, sometimes we only use one. It really depends on sort of how the fight's going or what we plan on doing. But it's important to kind of work through theoreticals in your guild, like especially when it comes to the elementals. Like if your matchups and your grids are pretty reliable, then it doesn't matter as much, but like there's always room to play, there's always room to improve. So we're just sort of pulling the curtain back and giving you a peek at our behind the guild kind of math work. We are working on a math sheet right now. We're working with the Snow guys who now have a math channel. So this will be evolved into something that has percentages and effects and like things that you would normally see, because math sucks and I'm not a math expert, as I'm sure most of you know. So that's it. Those are our nightmares. Those are I'll sort of run through these again just so you can kind of see them. You'll notice that it's always going to be Cecilia / Bad Rabbit or Library Wisp first. Anybody that has armor up is usually first up, unless you're padding your offense at the beginning. So that is it for me. So hopefully you guys find some of this useful. I know it doesn't really apply to everybody because these are kind of singular things that work slightly differently. Because like you do have to look at these things as a guild and figure it out. And if you guys aren't working on nightmare rotations or strats, it's really easy to do. You just have the conversation. Everybody gives you what's in their grid. Everybody tells you what they've got. And you as a guild just sort of sit down and work it out. So good luck. If you guys need anything, leave comments, like, subscribe, the whole thing. And y'all have a good one and don't get miserable.